Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we have Brett Johnson, who is a global black belt for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Brett's been at Microsoft a long time. We talk a little bit about his journey and the current M365 Copilot role. What is a global black belt? What do they do? And then we talk about Copilot, how customers are deploying it, where the benefits are for customers, and how adoption's going. Really appreciate Brett taking the time to talk to me about Copilot, and many thanks to Jabra, who are the sponsor of this podcast. Really appreciate their support of Empowering Cloud. On with the show. Hi everybody, welcome back to the pod. I've been looking forward to this one. Brett and I are long overdue a catch up, and he's just recently changed role. So I saw it ping up on LinkedIn and said, we've got to have a chat. So without further ado, Brett, do you just want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your kind of background inside of Microsoft leading up to the kind of current new GBB Copilot role?
Yeah, no, well, thanks, Tom. And it was nice to get your ping, actually. And you're right. I've recently moved into a new role. The official title is Microsoft 365 plus Copilot Global Black Belt. I'll explain what that means in a moment.
Nice, snappy title, as these roles tend to be.
Well, yeah. Yeah, normally, obviously, it's just really shortened to GBB. And everybody kind of gets the gist. But look, in simple terms, it's an EMEA role, actually. I'm not reporting into the UK anymore, but it's there to support the modern work SSP, so the solution sales professionals, the technical sales professionals, TSPs, and assists in the Copilot conversations, to be honest. It's about progressing those. The GBB organisation tends to have closer ties to engineering and some of our corporate friends, so that can help unblock. But we were on a call earlier on this morning, actually, and I guess one of the words to describe the GBB is it fills the void, right? So if there are things that needs to be done or levers that need to be pulled in order to progress a customer conversation, that's where we can help. So yeah, very exciting. So not new to Microsoft, as I'm sure you know. We've known each other for many, many years. So know my way around Microsoft pretty well. But relatively new into the Copilot world, and an incredibly exciting place, and very privileged to be in this position.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's such a fast-moving pace. I mean, I'm fascinated at the speed Microsoft has adopted and transformed to be kind of very AI first, and that GBB role feels almost more important than ever at this level of pace to keep up with what's going on, how the products are changing, helping the customers. It's a big role.
Well, you've probably heard of the Microsoft fire hose, right? Or people would have done if they've worked for Microsoft before, or even as a customer trying to keep up to date with everything. But my goodness me, the amount of information, technical information, commercial information, that comes over that we need to learn and comprehend is significant. But it's great, right? That's exactly where I want to be, learning with the growth mindset of everything to do with this. So, yeah, it's cool.
And your background, just to give people context, I mean, we probably first overlapped when you were doing, I know you were originally kind of Exchange, and then you did UC, and you stepped into Surface for a while. Like, tell us the story a little bit.
Well, yeah, I don't want to give a full detail of my CV, but it is all Microsoft. It's the only place I've ever worked for my sins. Very fortunate to have many careers, actually. I've described it to some as a very squiggly career. Started off supporting Exchange, so I was on-premise support and debugging, to a degree, Exchange servers, and certainly escalating issues to the US. That was fun. As people know, or the people that do know me, I can talk a lot, and so actually that means I can educate people on things. I moved into technical pre-sales for Exchange, which was an illuminating experience because I ended up basically competing with the earlier version of Exchange for many years. So what's the reason to upgrade? What do we do? Why do we do that? And then that augmented to unified comms. So there was the conferencing server, for those that remember, as part of Exchange 2000. And then that augmented into the likes of Link, Skype for Business. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful terminologies and marketing strategies we've been through. And then that twisted into, there was a secret thing, or kind of secret thing, called MMS, Microsoft Managed Services, which then moved into BPOS, which was the Business Productivity Online Suite. And that's when I was a technical specialist, by the way, at that point. And then that's what became Office 365, then Microsoft 365. Went into management and dabbled around in that for a few years. And then just before COVID, went and sold Surface, so got my hardware wings. and then into the world of Viva, did that for a couple of years, and then into the Copilot GBB role. So yeah, there's a short précis of where
it's good to get the context. Yeah. Like and I guess now this is in some ways, probably a much wider role because it's essentially around Copilot for Microsoft 365. So it's more of a stack role. Is that right?
Yeah. So in short, the kind of the focus area for me and the team that I'm in is around Copilot that sits within Office, right? So obviously, for those of you that have experienced it, we've got Copilot for lots of things, and quite a lot of people get confused. Frankly,
everything, I would hazard a guess.
We'll come on to that in due course, I'm sure. But if you think of Copilot in Teams being kind of the primary focus that a lot of people understand and arguably get the most benefit in the first instance. But then you've got Copilot across the Office stack, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Happy to have those conversations as well as needed. OneNote, Whiteboard. So wherever you see Copilot within the modern work cloud, so Microsoft 365, that's where we will kind of focus. But not forgetting the likes of Copilot Studio and extending that into third-party databases and connecting it to the multiverse essentially to make it even more cleverer than it already is.
Yeah, it's a fun time, but such a fast moving time. You say because you have this Copilot conversation, and like I feel like the GitHub Copilot, which is kind of where the brand came from, has been a bit of a slam dunk. Like devs get it, it's there. The general Copilot, which we don't really have a name for, the kind of web old Bing Chat Copilot. I feel like a lot of people are missing out on that because that is included in almost all the Office 365 SKUs now. And you've got this opportunity to activate a service for your users that is commercially data protected and in the box kind of thing. And then
you're right. But yeah, having what was Bing Chat Enterprise, now Microsoft Copilot within the browser is a game changer. And actually, for those of you that are listening that haven't perhaps made any leaps into Copilot for whatever reason, that would be a good place to start, right? Absolutely. It's phenomenal.
I'm glad you said that because I feel like so many customers I work with that haven't activated it yet, and I'm like, there's no commercial implication here. Obviously, there's a consideration from teaching users, but there's such good value to be had for no additional commercial charge. And obviously, there's a lot of exciting things we'll get onto about the M365 Copilot, but there's value to be had there, no additional cost in a lot of cases.
Well, no, absolutely, and I know if when I do a demo for customers, whether that be across public sector, enterprise, commercial, work across a number of different industries and segments at the minute, that's probably where we will start, right? Because there's bound to be individuals in the room that have at least played and have looked at ChatGPT.
Yeah, almost certainly, right?
Directly with OpenAI.
Yeah,
it just helps kind of paint the picture and provide the bridge into what Microsoft 365 Copilot can bring them.
Yeah. And so where do you start that Microsoft 365 Copilot conversation? You mentioned it's across so many products. Is Teams the typical starting place? Obviously, I'm a Teams person, so that's where I always start. But I'm curious with you with a more even hat on.
No, it's a really good question. And actually, tomorrow I'm doing a presentation for a number of central government customers, actually, and in the midst of putting that demo together. And it varies. It can vary. But I think what helps paint the picture is making an assumption that there'll be somebody in the room that doesn't really get it. And they're probably a little embarrassed to put their hand up with their peers to say, look, I've kind of heard about this thing, but I haven't played with it. And that's fine. So literally starting, dare I say, from basics of, look, here is what Microsoft Copilot or Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft Copilot is. Yeah. Start in the browser. And just ask it a question. And then you can then start to elaborate on the answer and ultimately start having a conversation with it in order to provide contextual examples as to what you're asking. So we start there. And then there's a mobile client as well, right? Because I think a lot of customers just make this assumption that it's just something that you would do on your PC or Mac. But actually, on your Android or iPhone, there are appropriate apps that you can connect to, whether that is directly to the web or to your Microsoft 365 commercial tenant, that you've got that experience as well. So, mobile experience, Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft Copilot. And then you're right, Teams is probably the place where we will go, primarily to showcase meeting recap and then go and start asking questions of the meeting, making an assumption that it's been recorded in the first place. And this would be a good point to call out, actually. I can't remember if it's being published yet, but there is a new white paper on best practices when it comes to call recording, transcription, and those types of things. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Tom.
Oh, great! Yeah, no, I heard it was coming. I don't think I've seen it yet. So if you ping me links afterwards, we'll put it in the show notes, because that's a really hot conversation. Particularly, I do a lot of work with legal customers, and it's like we're both really keen to get into AI because we know it's going to change the landscape quite a lot, and recording, transcription, considerations is a tough one.
No, I'll definitely send you the link to that, and I think if it's not publicly available, it will be very shortly.
Yeah, probably by the time we've edited, we'll be there.
So anyway, we've got kind of go off piece, well, not off piece, but just a reminder that there is this wonderful resource that will give you the advice and guidance of what to do with recording, transcription, and then obviously the compliance and how long you keep those recordings for. So Teams is where we'll stay. Sorry,
just worth noting that you can do a lot now with just transcription as well, which has been a big unlock for certain customers that aren't ready to record the meetings. They can still do a lot of the cleverness of Copilot with just even transient transcription, not saved transcription, which is exciting.
No, I agree. And look, to be honest with you, Tom, I very rarely take notes now, and the result of that is, trusting the transcription and the conversation that we're having across numerous people in a meeting, but I'm actually paying perhaps more attention to what's going on rather than actually scribbling notes down, literally in old school pen and paper or in OneNote. Right? It's you kind of find yourself. Well, I found myself being a lot more attentive, frankly, which is a great benefit. So yeah, Teams and what we can do with Copilot there, and of course Copilot in the top left can be your window essentially into the rest of the Microsoft graph. So again, for those of you that don't know, the graph is the connection that I have with other Microsoft colleagues, and also the assets that live across Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. And so as a result of that, you can start asking some really insightful questions about the data and asking it to prepare for meetings and all sorts of things. So, and I'm sure this is
Microsoft's kind of secret sauce / power over, to say, another AI engine or ChatGPT is the graph access to all your data, obviously compliant with what you're allowed to see, but your emails, your chat, your meeting notes. It's the only AI tool that has all that data available, which is where it gets clever.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a significant USP that Copilot has across your Microsoft 365 estate, accessing that digital substrate, the graph of your breadcrumb of activity with who you've worked with and whatnot. But again, just to re-emphasize, it works on your behalf. It doesn't inherit permissions or unlock doors that you don't have keys to. Right? It's you. So it only has permissions to what you see as an individual. It doesn't get inherited access in any way, shape, or form.
So I'm curious. You have access to all the toys and capabilities internally. Talk me through day to day. Where are you finding Copilot add value to your workflows?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think every person's different, and we can have a conversation around the use cases and industries and things like that. But for me, I use the summarize function in Outlook quite a lot, right? And remember, there's two versions of Outlook. There's Outlook New and Outlook Classic, and I must admit I'm still flip-flopping between the two. So depending on what I need to do, I will be in one or other. But look, I think summarizing long email threads is certainly something that I'm finding benefit from. But I'll give you an example actually as to where it really did. It was just magical, to be brutally honest with you. We had an internal call not so long ago, last week. I think there was 4 of us on the call, relatively technical, logical people, and there was a technical scenario that we were talking through, and it was quite complex. And actually, individuals had different perceptions of what the problem actually was. So it probably took half an hour, 40 minutes, just talking the scenario through. And then a couple of people dropped off, and the 2 that were left, me and another, we it was our job to kind of summarize what went on and think, right, what is the actual question that we need to ask engineering? And guess what? We used the Copilot within Teams on the transcription, and it was incredible. So the prompt is key, right? Rather than just summarizing the problem statement, we were very clear with what we wanted it to do.
Yeah.
And it provided us with probably what would have taken another 30-40 minutes of wordsmithing and crafting, and all. In the end, it took us 5 minutes. So awesome. It saved us a ton of time, and the value's right there.
And that prompting thing is, you touched something that's really important. It's a skill, certainly I feel, to drive the value out of the product. Like just hitting summarize is a thing, and actually intelligent meeting recap already adds some value at one click. But the difference between someone who knows how to drive Copilot to get the maximum out of it, I feel like it's almost night and day if you look at users side by side.
Yeah, prompting is something that I think everybody needs to become more aware of, right? And the way I describe it, I was with a colleague actually just before this call, and I said to them, just remember, it's not in your head, right? It's not. There's no telepathy link to Copilot, right? So what you're asking it's going to do, but actually you need to be sometimes quite descriptive as to what you want.
Yeah.
So if you want a bulleted list in a table, tell it that you want a bulleted list in a table. If you only want 3 things, then tell it you only want 3 things in a bulleted list in a table. And I've just taken off my pinboard. You may have just seen then the context of GCSE. So G is for goal. What output do you want from Copilot? The context. So why do you need it and who is involved? The source, because one of the things that we all forget is actually where are we looking? Is it a Word document in SharePoint? Is it a Teams meeting that was recorded? Is it an email that Tom sent me 2 years ago? So you've got to kind of think where you're going to pull this from, and then the E is around the preferences. So how should Copilot respond? So look, there's lots of things. If you go on the adoption sites on Microsoft for Copilot, you'll find all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting methodology, GCSE.
It's really useful. I think it is certainly I've found since I've had Copilot, you have to put some effort into proactive habit change, and this is going to be slower to be faster. I'm going to have to learn how to drive the tool, and that prompting I found personally, there's a big difference. I heard the comparison from somebody else of kind of treating it like a junior employee or employee new to the space, however you want to phrase it. Like you if you ask somebody to do something, you don't explain exactly what you want, and you get a different result back. You can't be annoyed that you didn't say, I wanted the bulleted list, or I prefer a table.
It's an interesting analogy. That you're right. It's exactly that. And then we'll see. We'll see things change as we go on this journey. Perhaps it being a little bit more proactive. So rather than it kind of waiting for input, maybe a little tap on the shoulder to say, oh, by the way, it looks like you're writing a letter.
Well, that's we're getting into the agent / team Copilot type scenarios, which got previewed at Build, and it's interesting that takes the whole conversation away from I drive the tool, it's personally mine, into this is a agent, slightly proactive. I bring it into the team, I bring it into the conversation. It can draw down bullets and notes in real time. I'm really excited for that from an adoption point of view, because the tool will start to show off some of its capabilities a bit more proactively.
And look, and what we're beginning to see, the customers that have been on the EAP early access program, and those that have invested and subsequently have deployed and adopted, that's kind of the next phase, right? Is to go, right, okay, we get it. There's a ton of value that we're seeing from just the Microsoft 365 tenant and the graph. What's next? How do we connect it into these other things that we've got that gives us even more superpowers?
And that brings us into the Copilot Studio conversation and kind of custom Copilots, which, again, from a pure talking to customers ROI perspective, very often I can say, because those are more consumption-based and line of business use case, you can sometimes pick things out that are this might not apply to everybody in the business, but there's a win here, just building a Copilot for this workflow or this scenario. Have you seen anything similar around that?
Yeah, so in short, yes. And that And those conversations start to appear once, or well, not once, but throughout the business case conversation, right? Because there's the obvious business value of that it saves time, right? And I've given you an example, and I'm sure many people that are watching and listening to this have got their own examples, right? Fundamentally, it can help you save time, whether that's creating stuff, summarizing stuff, whatever. But actually, if we then start to think about, right, so what is it that a certain department does within an organization? What's their function, and what KPI are they being either measured on, or what's their goal for the organizational growth or for the next fiscal, right? So then aligning what that department does with a KPI, key performance indicator, and how can Copilot help that particular department or individuals within that are key for the KPI to be hit. That's where we're going, right? And then that can then connect into Copilot, and then the world extends out. It's quite a big conversation.
It's a huge conversation, isn't it? It's such an exciting one that we're still relatively early in the journey, and already it's starting to unlock so much value. I can't wait to see where we are in the next 12, 24 months of agent-based stuff, proactive workflows. And also, it feels like Copilot is bedding into the Office suite as well. Like it's very strong in Teams. I think Excel's coming along. Like that it will get better and better in each of those use cases, I feel.
And it is. And so there's a couple of things there just to comment. So don't forget aka.ms/worklab. So another thing to add on to the show notes is where we, Microsoft, the royal we, publish all of our research. So it shows you kind of where we've come, and if you're not aware of it, that's a really interesting place just to kind of understand some of the fact that goes on. Yeah, and I guess don't forget, it's probably, next month, July, would be a year or so since the EAP became a real thing. There's hundreds of features and capabilities that have been added to Copilot across the Microsoft modern work stack that you may not be even aware of, right? So this thing is just...
Isn't it funny that we used to think, we went from... You went on this journey from kind of server-based products every 3 years to BPOS to M365,
Yeah.
and then we're like, that's fast. Then we're like, oh, Teams is really fast. Like Teams is growing in the millions and growing in the features. And then this whole Copilot journey has been a whole different thing in terms of the number of teams working on different integrations and the features coming through. It really is a lot of change in the product set.
And don't forget, a lot of that stuff is visible up on our roadmap site, right? So the public stuff is, yes, there's an NDA stuff, NDA deck and capabilities that are not on there. But as and when those get locked and become, confirmed and concrete, they arguably then will appear on the public roadmap, right? So, if you want some indication of what has landed and what is coming, then, that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thanks for joining me on the pod. It's good to hear about your new role. I think you're in arguably one of the most exciting spaces at the moment. So maybe if it's okay with you, we'll give you another 6 months, and then we'll get you back round for some more customer ideas and conversations. That's all right.
But before you're not going to disappear without me asking you a question, then, Tom. But what are you using it for? Where are you getting the most value of Copilot?
Yeah. So within Power and Cloud, I do loads of content. So it's podcasts, it's a newsletter, it's loads of conversations. We try and talk to enterprise customers and in Teams, the OEM vendors. So I do loads of meeting recap and summarizing of notes, pulling out like content ideas from conversations. So I'd say Teams is definitely my primary use case. But I also use just regular Copilot for things like data manipulation. So like take this list, CSV it, content it, table it, bullet it. Like there's not much I don't now have some kind of AI in my workflow. And I'm not really into the like generative writer thing for me stuff so much, but it's the summarizing, the extracting ideas. That's been huge for me.
Oh, that's cool. Well, look, there's a lot of great stuff that you've landed. Build gave you some idea as to some of the things that are coming, but there's a lot more that you'll see over the next 6 to 12 months. A very exciting time. Look, Tom, thank you for the invite, and I definitely look forward to doing this again with you in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett.